News Alert, the White House briefing set to start any moment now as a contentious battle heats up between President Trump and Steve Bannon. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, and this is the Daily Briefing. White House lawyers are now taking steps to try and block the publication of that explosive book by Michael Wolff containing highly disparaging comments attributed to Bannon. Kevin Corke is at the White House. What's the White House now saying about the former chief strategist, Kevin?
Well, they're saying a number of things, but I think if I were to use the vernacular of the day, Dana, stay in your lane. That seems to be the message from the president. I mean, clearly they're pushing back. In addition to the flurry of cease and desist letters, it is obvious that the president was none too pleased by what he read and heard about what Steve Bannon is said to have told Michael Wolff. The president, of course, was asked about Mr. Bannon, and, you know, he said, look, the forthcoming book is obviously an issue. It's called Fire and Fury for the folks at home that don't know it. Bannon, in that book, makes a number of assertions, including one that the president once refused to hire someone because he had a mustache. And that the president's daughter, again, this is according to another excerpt in this book, was, quote, dumb as a brick. Bannon did not disavow those comments, but he told a radio audience, Dana, that he still supports the Trump agenda. As for the president, when he was asked if he felt betrayed by Mr. Bannon, the chief said this.
I don't know. He called me a great man last night, so, you know, he obviously changed his tune pretty quick. All right, thank you all very much. Thank you. I don't talk to him. I don't talk to him. That's just a misnomer.
Now, as we've also pointed out, the president's lawyer sent also another cease and desist letter. This one not just for Steve Bannon, but also for the publisher of the book. And this is a very interesting strategy. If you've been following the president's career, you know that this is sort of par for the course, quite frankly. You fire off a letter, you get your lawyers to put one out there, and then you never really actually follow through. Well, this one, though, the president's lawyers sending out that letter saying that it contained, the book that is, contained, quote, libelous allegations. And so we'll keep an eye on that and see if, by chance, they follow through. Dana? All
right, thanks so much. We have a lawyer coming up that will tell us more about that. Yeah. Thanks so much, Kevin. For more on all this, let's bring in Fox News contributors Guy Benson, who is political editor at townhall.com, and Leslie Marshall, host of the syndicated Leslie Marshall Show. Let me play for you, Guy, and have you react. The soundbite that President Trump was referring to when he said that last night, after a flurry of news all day long about the book, Steve Bannon said this about the president.
The President of the United States is a great man. You know, I support him day in and day out, whether going through the country giving the Trump miracle speech or on the show or on the website. So I don't think you have to worry about that. But I appreciate the kind words.
Guy, as from what I've read, I mean, Steve Bannon actually doesn't say anything disparaging about President Trump himself. It was other people within the White House he took issue with, including the family. Your thoughts?
Well, if you want to really infuriate Donald Trump, there's a pretty good way to do it. That's to call his daughter Ivanka dumb as a brick. It's to call his son Don Jr. unpatriotic and treasonous. And it's to suggest, based on evidence that may be forthcoming, we have no idea, that the infamous Trump Tower meeting, the potential or attempted collusion with the Russians, involved the president himself. That's a trifecta of bad on the part of Steve Bannon, and that's why I think we saw the volcanic response from the president yesterday in that really blistering statement. And so, look, I think Bannon, in that little comment he made on the radio, maybe he's just trying to lie low at this point, recognizing that he's already said far too much to a reporter whom he granted massive access to the Trump White House, resulting in what is clearly a giant distraction and really an embarrassment for the administration.
Yeah, Leslie, I was saying that when it comes to book PR, if it's negative towards your principal, there's really no way around it. You just have to plow through it, and you either try to suppress it or to counter it. What do you think about the White House's moves to try to distance themselves from Bannon at this point?
Well, I think it's laughable. I mean, quite frankly, it's almost like, you know, pretty soon if Ivanka says something negative, the president will say, Ivanka, never met her, don't know her. I mean, the American public is smarter than this. And quite frankly, I think the president should rise above this, regardless of somebody's political leanings, left or right. We've seen scathing books written about presidents, first ladies, their children. And I think this is, unfortunately, even Mitt Romney has said par for the course when you're in public office. It's sad, but I think he should, quite frankly, frankly, ignore it. My father-in-law once said, "You're an elephant, and those who make such remarks are little dogs nipping at your ankles." And I honestly think the president should look at these remarks as such. He is giving more attention to the book and to the comments within, and to Bannon's comments by addressing it and by tweeting about it and commenting about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way you slice it, you just have to know that no matter what it is, if it's a book that's good for you or a book that's negative for you, it will end at some point. But they're just going to have to get through this week. In the meantime, Guy, let me ask you about this. The Daily Beast is reporting that the Justice Department is apparently considering looking into, again, Hillary Clinton's emails. It's certainly one of the most scrutinized email services of all time, as one of her staffers has said. But what do you think about this?
Well, I have a mixed mind on this. I think that the die was cast really in July of 2016 when James Comey decided, wrongly in my view, not to file charges against Mrs. Clinton for her gross negligence. And I don't really know if they're going to be able to go back and dredge up new charges. I think there will be concerns, especially among Democrats, that this is a president demanding things of the Justice Department for a political prosecution. I think we're going to hear a lot about that from the left. There are, however, I will say, a few questions that I think remain unanswered that are serious about how that investigation played out. In particular, some of the decisions that were made by those investigators to grant immunity to some of Clinton's aides. The way that we've seen the Russia investigation go against President Trump, Mueller's going after low-level people for lying to the FBI and other such infractions and apparently trying to build a case up from there. In the Clinton case, the opposite happened. There was lying to the FBI by, I think, at least 3 now senior Clinton aides, none of whom were charged. In fact, they were given immunity for reasons that remain unclear. So there are parts of that I think we need answers to. Why did Comey draft the memo exonerating Clinton before the interviews were over? But I don't know if it looks great for the president to beat the desk, pound the desk every day saying, we need to prosecute crooked Hillary. And then the DOJ, which is supposed to be independent, hops to it and salutes.
That's one of the things, Leslie, I was going to ask you about, because in that same article, there's a quote from a Republican-leaning person who says, well, it's about time that you had an investigation that was into Hillary Clinton's emails that had no fear or favor, just like figuring out what actually went wrong. And then there's somebody else who says this is clearly the White House having an impact on the Justice Department, finally trying to calm the president down and saying, OK, fine, we'll look into it. What do you think about it?
I think that's exactly what it is, Dana. I think the president has just been going on and can't, move beyond lock her up. I think a lot of people on the right just want to lock one of the Clintons up, even if they have no reason to. And negligence is not criminal. And I think, and I'm all for, by the way, opening this further, looking into whatever they can find. And I am very confident I'd go to Vegas betting that they will not find anything, as they didn't with Benghazi. And quite frankly, you can't have the hypocrisy. You can't have it both ways. If you really want to rip open every, detail and reanalyze a million times at taxpayer expense these Clinton emails, then the same courtesy has to be done with regard to Russian collusion and obstruction of justice, and let this investigation play out.
They're telling me in my ear that I have time for this. We might have to just have a quick reaction. But today, the Attorney General making some other news in regards to marijuana laws, basically saying he's rescinding the guidance that says you don't have to go after them and enforce the laws against marijuana for those states that have legalized it. Here's Cory Gardner, the senator from Colorado, on the Senate floor just moments ago.
I would like to know from the Attorney General what has changed? What has changed President Trump's mind that the Cole Memorandum would be reversed and rescinded? What has changed the president's mind? Why is Donald Trump thinking differently today about what he promised the people of Colorado in 2016? The reverse course today. What changed? I'd like to know that. I think the people of Colorado deserve to have that answer.
Colorado certainly, Guy, one of the first states to go ahead and legalize. It's like fully entrenched now, for better or worse. What do you think about what Cory Gardner was saying, which is he's demanding an answer to the question of what changed? What is different now?
Well, I understand why he's frustrated. Look, I'm not an advocate of marijuana use. It's not something I've ever done myself. But I also question, with all the challenges that we face in this country and all the challenges that the law enforcement community faces every single day, stopping terrorism, MS-13, really serious threats, I really strongly believe that taking government and federal resources to go after states that have made a decision on their own to decriminalize or legalize marijuana is just really the wrong approach to this on a number of levels.
Let me give Leslie the last word, and I guess I would just put this out there that it is true that the Congress hasn't passed a law that would say that we don't need to do this anymore. Basically, this was just guidance. And once again, the executive branch is saying to Congress, if you want this, then you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to pass a law yourself.
Very true. Guy, we start the new year actually agreeing on something.
Look,
with regard to not only priorities in this country, let's look at priorities with regard to drugs. We have opiates that come in from other countries such as Afghanistan, cocaine that comes in from South America through Central America and Mexico, and we have an opiate crisis here in this country that is reaching in many states epidemic proportions. We don't see this with marijuana usage. This is not a proper use of the DEA's funding or staffing. It doesn't help the American people, and quite frankly, it'll hurt a lot of small business owners in Washington, Colorado, and as of this week, here in California.
Not to mention, California. You're flying high now, California. There's a lot of revenue that the government, state governments are using too.
And Dana, it's about priorities and it's about discretion. Yeah. And in this case, marijuana, I think it's the wrong move.
Well, hopefully we'll hear from them later and maybe get an answer to that question that Senator Gardner posed. Guy Benson and Leslie Marshall, thanks so much.
Thank you.